With Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young finding success after getting benched, it's raised some serious questions around the league. When they got benched, a lot of conversations about the benching was that it would destroy the confidence of these young players. But based on how they've played since coming back from being benched, it seems like the exact opposite has happened. Both quarterbacks stepped back into the starting position and played some of the best football of their careers to date. They looked more confident, more prepared, more decisive, just better overall as quarterbacks. I think this points to a bigger issue in the NFL as a whole, which is the destructive cycle young quarterbacks face. If you root for teams like the Jets, Raiders, Giants, or Bears, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's break this conversation down into a few different parts, starting with the lack of patience across the league. This impatience comes from all sides, whether it's fans, owners, coaching staffs, literally anyone involved in the NFL. For fans, it's a mix of passion as well as not fully understanding how difficult it is to play quarterback at a professional level. More importantly, fans want to win and they want to win now. For coaches and GMs, it's a bit different, if not entirely. Unless you're a guy like Mike Tomlin who has built years of credibility, most coaches don't have the time to sit around and wait for a young quarterback to develop appropriately. If you draft a quarterback high, the expectation is that they will start immediately and will succeed immediately. If they don't, the coach usually gets fired. Need an example? Matt Eberflus from literally this week.
I think we handled it the right way.
Not here to talk about whether that was the right decision or the wrong decision necessarily. It's just a fact that that happened. Since 2000, 37 coaches have been fired or asked to resign mid-season. A lot of people refer to the NFL as not for long for this reason. This leads to a paradox. Coaches feel pressured to play quarterbacks early, but also don't have time to let them develop and play to the best of their ability. If a rookie struggles, which most do, especially on lackluster rosters, which a lot of highly drafted quarterbacks are, it puts the coach's job on the line. So what happens? They bench the quarterback too soon and lose with Joe Flacco for a few weeks instead, and the cycle continues. There's an obvious solution to this. Just win games. But winning isn't that simple or easy, especially with a rookie quarterback. And that leads me to my next point. Not all rookie quarterbacks should start right away, which is more or less the main objective of this video. This depends on two main things: team situation and player readiness. First, the team situation. Rookies don't get to choose where they're drafted. They can't control the quality of their offensive line, they can't control the weapons that they're throwing the ball to, or the coaching staff that they have around them. Where they go is where they are. And most high draft picks are going to bad teams. That's how that team ended up with the high draft pick in the first place, at least most of the time. Look at Zach Wilson with the Jets, or Sam Darnold with the Jets, or Geno Smith with the Jets. All had talent, but the situations around them were just the Jets. Low-key, this is the Jets hate piece. The second point I mentioned, player readiness, the quarterback themselves. Some players just aren't ready. Anthony Richardson is a perfect example. He came into the league as a raw, inexperienced player with a ton of upside, but at 21 years old, he really just wasn't ready to lead a franchise. He needed time to learn the game and grow into the role. Yet, people argue, why draft a quarterback fourth overall if you're not going to start them? My response, why draft them at all if you're just going to destroy their career and put an unrelenting amount of pressure on them to succeed immediately, which inevitably destroys their confidence in the long run. Starting them too early can at times be one of the worst things you can do.
You've wasted your pick if you didn't start your rookie quarterback.
This mindset is baffling to me. Are we just going to ignore the potential remaining 10 to 15 years of an NFL career because of a wasted first season? It's this impatience, the need for immediate results, that leads to wasted potential. Here's a clip of the literal GOAT of college football telling you exactly what I'm saying right now.
Fail at such a dramatic rate. To me, expectations are a killer. This kid's got so much media, so much hype, so much expectation on doing well. And he has to develop so quickly to meet the expectations that everybody has for him. It's almost impossible. The expectations are a killer. But yet, to use your word, development is the key. for him. You know, like Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions when he was a rookie. It's the most in the history of all.
Manning looks to throw, tipped and intercepted.
It's unbelievable.
Put the nail on it.
But it didn't affect him. It was like the scoreboard.
Let's look at some actual examples of first-round quarterbacks who sat versus those who started right away since 2017, since that's kind of the start of the modern generation of quarterbacks that we have now. In 2017, Mitchell Trubisky started immediately and became a bust. The situation was bad and he was bad. I don't think many people are going to argue that Mitchell Trubisky was ever going to be a superstar. I think that was kind of a bad pick overall. Regardless, it was a bad situation and a quarterback that really shouldn't have started. Patrick Mahomes sat behind Alex Smith and is now one of the best quarterbacks of all time. Now we're kind of seeing where that situation was ready, but the player wasn't ready necessarily, and they did have the benefit of having someone like Alex Smith play in front of him for a year. He got in a game or two, but that isn't really relevant. In 2018, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, and Lamar Jackson were picked in the first round. The only quarterback there on that list to sit was Lamar Jackson, and we all know how that worked out. Obviously not a bad situation to be in anyways. But someone that does dispute my point a bit is Josh Allen. Josh Allen started immediately and did struggle out the gate. It took a few seasons for him to get going, but there were a few main things contributing to his success as the years went. For starters, the Bills weren't a complete dumpster fire organization to begin with, which did keep him on the field and kept the coach's job, which is another point to make. The consistency and the patience they had with their coach, Sean McDermott, to keep him as the head coach while Josh Allen was developing to build an established system and relationship. They also did acquire Stephon Diggs and piece this roster together a ton over the years, which allowed for the situation entirely around him to be better to succeed. Not to mention, Josh Allen just got better in a lot of ways. One of the main things that I noticed early on in his career that really flipped a switch was his accuracy got way better when he fixed his footwork when it came to throwing the football, which is good praise for him and, the coaching staff a little bit for recognizing that and fixing that. Other than that, Sam Darnold flopped for the Jets, as I mentioned. Josh Rosen was a complete bust through and through, and the Browns just completely handled Baker the wrong way. 2019, Kyler Murray started and has been a success. Daniel Jones didn't start until week 3 of his career, but that clearly wasn't appropriate since the roster and coaching was so lackluster, and 3 weeks isn't exactly the time frame I'm really talking about that leads to success. I also personally believe that Daniel Jones has a very lackluster skill set, and with hindsight should never have been a starting quarterback. He shows so many qualities of a backup caliber quarterback, but that's a different conversation. The Commanders did also draft Dwayne Haskins in the first round, whom I have nothing to say about except rest in peace. He was gone way too soon. 2020, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Tua, Jordan Love. Now, by the sound of that list, the point I'm making seems a bit wrong, but I'm going to argue anyway because I'm arrogant. Keep in mind the main point I'm making. I'm not saying that every rookie quarterback should not start year 1. My main point is that it really depends on team situation and quarterback capability. Tua and Love weren't full-time starters. Love wasn't for multiple years. I'd say both have worked out fairly well, barring health issues from Tua as well as a head coach that seemingly despised him. He also got weapons as his career went along and a head coach that believed in him, and in terms of offensive minds was one of the top in the league for a bit. That scheme really fits Tua well. You have a scheme that fits Tua and a roster that fits his strengths, ergo a situation. When it comes to Burrow and Herbert, no lie, Burrow is a full-on exception. He was an older rookie quarterback who clearly had the game figured out as much as any rookie quarterback can, not to mention with the addition of Jamar Chase. And Herbert did have weapons in LA and was also seemingly held back by the Oregon coaching staff because a narrative around Justin Herbert is that he was a gamble and was kind of a high upside but scary pick to make. As we saw in his rookie year, that's not really the kind of player he is. I think Oregon was leading to a lot of that mindset and that brain with him and just held him back scheme-wise. On to 2021, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones. While 2020 was making my take look a little foolish, 2021 is driving a nail in the coffin of the opposing point. All these quarterbacks started early, and to some degree, all have flopped. Now, Trevor did get a huge contract extension, but you're not going to sit here and tell me that he's playing extremely well. Jaguars are also in line for the #1 pick yet again. Mac Jones isn't even in New England anymore. He's actually playing with Trevor as a backup in Jacksonville with all that mess they have going on. And Trey Lance is the exact example to use for a player that had absolutely no business starting their rookie or sophomore season. Now he's a third stringer in Dallas. I will be fair and mention that injuries greatly held him back, but it's tough to get hurt sitting on the bench. Zach Wilson is one of the other main reasons I'm making this video, along with the Jets franchise as a whole, an obviously talented player who was stuck on a horrible roster with no coaching staff that completely flailed out his career. On to 2022, Kenny Pickett. Can we just skip this one? Cool, thanks. 2023, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson. I talked about these guys a bit already, but we've seen somewhat of a course correction with them being benched and coming back. AR and Bryce are great examples of what it looks like when you take the eyes of the world and the pressure of a dumpster fire team off the shoulders of a 20-year-old who isn't ready to play yet. Being able to sit back for a bit and see how the system they're in works and is run by a vet obviously helped them, as well as what I've been mentioning pretty consistently, which is turning down the pressure. At this point now, it seems like I might be a bit confused with what I'm saying because I both mentioned the issues with benching a quarterback mid-season, a rookie quarterback, as well as praised it. But I did mention earlier that someone like Anthony Richardson really shouldn't have started in the first place, and there wouldn't necessarily be a need to bench him mid-season in year 2 if he was already on the bench. Jordan Love is a really interesting player to me for a few reasons. It's like we get to see exactly what happens when you take a high-ceiling developmental quarterback and sit them with really direct correlation to their on-field play. Jordan Love's biggest strengths are his mind, both from his ability to read the field, understand open zone spots, as well as understanding anticipation based off coverage, as well as a major factor of how he handles pressure. And I don't just mean the pressure in the pocket, but the pressure of throwing an interception or making a bad play. Sure, you don't want those bad plays to happen, but you also don't want the confidence of your young quarterback to be destroyed by those bad plays. And since Jordan Love's been sitting, it feels like he's matured as a player and a human to not sulk and just get back out there and sling the rock. And out of every quarterback in the league that throws interceptions, who do you think cares less than Jordan Love? It clearly doesn't affect him very much. On the flip side, Love's weakest trait is probably his accuracy. Now, don't get me wrong, Jordan Love can hit crazy balls with incredible placement deep down the field or literally anywhere, but that's not really accuracy in the NFL or in football. It's the consistency that makes up the accuracy. How often are you hitting those shots? And Jordan Love makes some kind of not great throws decently often, and sometimes that is due to his mind. Sometimes he tries to make a throw that in his brain makes sense and realistically could work, but he just can't get his arm to do it exactly. Now, what's the reason for that? He hasn't been getting a crazy amount of on-field reps in his career to fully put concepts and ideas that he knows and learns onto actual field play. So for me, I'd argue someone like Jordan Love is in a much better situation than another quarterback that started immediately and had their confidence destroyed and were, quote, thrown into the fire to grow and develop. Jordan Love is able to grow and develop based off both the bad plays and the good plays he makes. All it's going to take at this point for him to clean up a lot of the mistakes he has is just more time, more reps, throwing the football more and seeing what actually works from the chalkboard versus on the field. So where does this all leave us? What's my final message and takeaway from this video? Well, the important thing to grasp is if you want a 20-something-year-old quarterback to work out, it's going to take everything else around them as well, from the coaching staff to the roster polish. It has to be right. A very small number of players I just talked about were on bad teams and had success. If they did have success, they were either a very mature generational level prospect, Joe Burrow, or the bad team became good at the right time, Tua. And the only player that I listed that was on a good team, really good team, was Trey Lance. And That's because, as I said, he shouldn't have been starting in the first place. He was not going to be ready for a while. They knew this going in and yet started him way too soon. As I said before, some quarterbacks are just not ready to start out the gate, and Trey Lance was easily one of them. And now I gotta take one more jab at the Jets because they're literally the best example to use of a horrible organization destroying young quarterbacks. And the worst thing is they're probably gonna keep doing it. It's just one quarterback after another that they ruin. They cannot learn their lesson, and now they're at a point where the roster is actually pretty good for the most part, except Aaron Rodgers has gotten every single staff member fired and left a playoff caliber roster with no coaching staff, management, or direction whatsoever. There's no identity of this team. It's just him trying to make high-level plays with high-level players, but not really succeeding at winning football games, which is what matters because there's no structure to this team whatsoever. He did this so he can play his brand of telepathy-style football where he just expects every receiver to read his mind and know exactly where he's going to put the ball. My bad for getting off topic there. I just needed to get that rant out and didn't want to make a full video on it, but it bugs me because the Jets keep sticking themselves in this situation where the roster and coaching staff is poor and they keep drafting quarterbacks thinking it's going to save them, because that is a problem. Historically, that's been one of their issues, is not having a quarterback. But they're using a lot of high value resources to acquire a quarterback without fixing the things around themselves. And then that quarterback and those high value resources you used end up going to waste, which is why when people tell me, why would you draft a quarterback with a top 3 pick and not start them? Well, it's because you're going to ruin their career and your franchise. Anyways, that's going to do it for this one. Glad I got my thoughts out on this. I just moved. That's why I haven't posted in a while, and it took me a while to get my setup done. I had to get a new Mac and everything, but I'm back and I will be posting more regularly. So